Um, all right, but let's get to the tier list. And we're gonna start actually with acrobatic. So acrobatic is. Can you see the gods tier? Well, I'll just pull it up a little bit like this. So acrobatic is actually a really good skill. I personally consider acrobatic, like the unmastered version, as a good alternative for resilient. Like certain characters, they don't really have enough toughness, but with acrobatic, you're able to put like five points that you would normally put from agility, and you would put them into the toughness instead. And in this case, it translates into the acrobatic translates into 25 more health and 5% more crit resistance. So I like putting acrobatic on characters that want to also run away. And this would be like, for example, some kind of like shooters, right? Because then you can like reinvest your points into from agility into that toughness. Or could be also like some spellcasters as well. So I'm gonna like put this skill into this really good. As for the mastery, it's kind of a bit more awkward of a skill to use. Because in order to make use of this skill, you have to first invest into 9 agility. And then after paying the tax of investing your like points into 9 agility, then you can put it into the strength or toughness. Or you could also alternatively like try to create some kind of like dodge tank build out of builds that usually don't invest into agility. But I don't think that's really the way you should. I don't think you should invest into characters into agility if they're like not naturally leaning into agility. So I think this skill kind of ends up being like it's gonna be like either just like okay or just kind of bad. I'm just gonna put this into okay, and I will decide later if I like it there or not. Yeah, one more thing about this skill is that you can also use it on agility heavy characters, such as, what do you call it? The adept assassin, because adept assassin starts with 8 agility, so it's for adept assassin it's relatively easy to invest into this sort of a skill. So yeah, and you can do have yeah, I suppose I also never mentioned the part which is like why it is so good. It's also because it gives you 60% crit resistance when you run away from somebody. And this is especially really good for shooters, because sometimes, like, you with shooters, you most of the time you would prefer running away rather than disengaging, because running away gives you more distance and it doesn't eat your offensive points. So that's also like very good. And well, shooters usually don't invest into crit resistance, so for them it's kind of awkward trying to run away, because if the enemy gets like an unlucky crit at you, you may get stunned and the turn is just over for you. So with this skill, with acrobatic, you're gonna be safe every single time whenever you run away with your character. Ambuscade. Basically, it costs 6 agility and 12 agility, and it basically makes you gives you a higher chance to hit your ambush. So, ambush builds in general are kind of bad. I think you're gonna be like even probably just playing this on somebody like, what do you call him? Probably just Brethren, right? You could technically also play it on some Skaven, but probably Brethren, because Brethren kind of have like a bad hit chance. So I can see the skill being used on a Brethren. But like ambushes just in general have the issue that they can be very easily broken. And because they can be very easily broken, you have to invest more than just ambuscade into the ambushes. So I think like overall, like ambuscade giving 20% hit chance, I think it just kind of ends up being okay. As for the mastery, it gives you like 40% hit chance for your ambushes. And but it's easy to master at least. But you need like at least 12 agility. I mean, I think you would probably only use this on like a Brethren, like a full crit Brethren, which likes to invest all his martial points into accuracy. I think this is just kind of bad, because ambush builds are kind of bad. Okay, then we have Athletic. I believe it's called Athletic. No, it's called Athletic Expert. This is actually a pretty good skill, because it doesn't cost anything. And for some characters, some passive slots, you may end up with some free passive slots. And this can be like very nice. This can be very nice. Even better than, what do you call it? Than a veteran in some cases. So I think this is kind of like a good skill, because it doesn't cost anything. So it's not something that you would actively use. Maybe it's something you would actively use on somebody like a Night Runner, because Night Runner really wants to pass that jumping down a skill so that he gets the +4 movement speed. So maybe it could be like for the Night Runner a necessity. But it's just kind of like a neat thing to have if you have the like free passive slots. So I think the skill just kind of ends up being good. As for the mastery, I think it's just kind of bad, because you would have to like invest, although it's like easy to master and you would have to like invest like 1 skill point, I think it's just kind of bad. So next thing are Avoid. Basically the skill gives 15% dodge chance and the master gives 45% dodge chance. So I guess this is like the part where I start talking a little bit about dodge builds in the game in general, and why they're kind of bad to build, unless you're like late in the late game. So dodge builds, in order to make them work, you need both sidestep and like the mastery sidestep. And you would also like to invest into, like early on, you would also like to invest into this thing, so that your dodge is overall more consistent. So this, like dodge build already has a bit of a money problem. It costs way too much. It costs way too much gold to invest into into agility skills, you know? Um, yeah, that's kind of the point. Because this is like 300 gold, and this is 500 gold. And now like factor in like sidestep into it. That's another 300 gold and another 500 gold. And the thing is, another thing is your build is not going to work anyway. And the problem is that if you want to make like a dodge character early on, it's still going to have the issue that it might just get stunned from a completely random crit. And once your character is stunned, it cannot dodge anymore. And you are, as a dodge character, encouraged to have clothing on you. So you're gonna be incredibly squishy being like a dodge build. Because if you want to make dodge work early on, you have to invest into agility instead of toughness. And that makes you incredibly vulnerable to melee combat. So, like, the whole idea of dodge early on, I don't think it works. This is not really the case for parry, because parry is really freaking good early on, because I just need to invest my points into weapon skill while simultaneously investing into toughness. Like there is no competition there, so it's like very easy to invest to, and also to make parry consistent early on, you just use flash parry, and flash parry gives you 15% parry chance, and you only need like 100 gold to buy this skill. It's super super easy to buy, so it's like it's yeah, it's like 3 weapon skill and 9 weapon skill for the mastery if you want it. You don't even need the flash parry mastery. With that said, it may be even sometimes difficult trying to invest money into a void whatsoever for the late game builds. Like sometimes people only go for 120% dodge chance by maxing out 20 agility and then going for the clothing. And then they kind of just give up on avoids entirely. And that's also like another way to make it work. But in that case, people also usually invest into some melee resistance skills. And they use sidestep as some kind of what would you call it? Just in case thing. I think avoid should cost 3 agility to 9 agility. So this skill, it is going to make your dodges more consistent for sure. But it's not as good as parry. I mean, the only thing that dodge has going for it against parry is that sometimes parry can get completely bypassed. Otherwise, it would be, I think, like strictly inferior. I think this is fair. Just good. And I think putting the mastery here also makes sense. It's not bad, but like agility builds early on are a little bit tragic, and in the late game you might not have to invest into avoid whatsoever. As for the careful approach, I think you want to use this on mega tanks. A mega tank is a sort of a tank which is able to tank literally everything. So there are still counters to like mega tanks and so on, but yeah. So mega tank would be, for example, something like a Serenity tank. So with your passive skill slots, you want to invest into that melee resistance, but that still makes your God tank vulnerable to ranged attacks. And that's why like careful approach kind of exists, so that you can like mitigate that issue. Um, Basically. Um, yeah, yeah. Or like for example, to invest, you can also like with your Serenity tanks and your melee resistance tanks, you would also like to invest into what do you call it? Into magic resistance to have more magic resistance overall. So I think this is also like a sort of a thing which helps because you can you can use your active slot to have a passive slot ability sort of, and you can still use it also while you're engaged. Another way to use careful approach is by creating scouts. And this sort of a thing you can use, for example, for Skaven. If you're playing like some kind of a melee Skaven warband, you will have like one scout unit, and the purpose of the scout unit, because like the Skaven in general are very squishy, the purpose of the scout unit is to go into the area to scout it out and trigger as many overwatches as possible so that your other characters do not eat it. So I think I'm gonna put this into like good skill. Yeah. As for the mastery, I often have a hard time actually like trying to invest into the skill with a god tank because it just costs way too much, way too many points at 6 points. I think it's kind of bad. Like you could maybe use this on impressives, but then you're like, it's awkward. I think it's kind of bad. It's just not worth it. So for counter blow is whenever you dodge, your counter attack has 10% higher crit chance, which is very good. But it is very good because you sometimes may be able to crit the character that you're going up against. And that crit may be able to stun that character. And if you stun that character, it cannot do anything, and you get natural two-turner against that character. So it's like, it's very, very strong in theory. But this also costs, I don't think it's not very good. It's not very good because you have to rely on your opponent trying to hit you. I think it's usable for like some very, very specific characters. I think it's like for some very specific characters who like to go crit, such as witch hunters. But then you're also like using a passive skill slot on like one of your dodgers for this, and you would like to invest like if you fully commit into the dodge, you're still going to be vulnerable to several things, like for example the range attacks, the magic, and also your opponent might just choose not to attack you. So I think this skill only works with the shield enchantment, which gives you back 2 offensive points. You could also use this skill on Skaven, and I think it could be kind of legit with that shield. You need like that shield, I think it's called Shield of Recovery or something like that. Whenever you dodge, you get 2 offensive points. I think it could be kind of usable also on Novice as well, because she likes to go crit kind of. But then you also, because like these characters are investing too many points into accuracy to be able to crit in the first place, you also kind of want to combine it with a weapon skill, which gives you plus 20% chance to hit, so that you actually hit your strikes. Usually. Usually. So I think the basic version is... I think it's not bad. I think it's definitely usable. You can definitely use it. And I think the mastery is just... like, you only get plus 10% crit chance. And you have to like pay 4 points for it. Yeah, I think it's kind of bad, actually. So Prowl. Prowl, normal, and Prowl mastery. Hmm. So Prowl normal one, I would say it's... is it really good or is it just good? I'm gonna just put it into good for now. But Prowl is a very good skill for like the dodgy characters and so on. Because you don't really want to end your turn. This skill basically allows your dodge characters to move further than normally. Your dodge characters are usually very, very squishy. And that's kind of like the problem overall with the dodgy characters, that if you're not in some kind of like a dodge stance, if you don't end your turn in some kind of a dodge stance or like sidestep or something like that, they might be vulnerable to attacks. So this allows you to be able to move with your dodge characters further. So like, for example, like a novice likes this, right? You can move... you can use like one of your SP to set up a prowl and to have at least like that one dodge for that character, and then you can get into a sidestep, and this should be like working like pretty good for you. Yeah. As for the mastery prowl, I don't think this is a good skill, because you need 15 agility to make use of it. And also, like, the difference between like the normal prowl and this one is that it gives you plus 30% crit chance. But if you want to like crit somebody during an ambush, you are probably investing into, what do you call it? Into crit chance. And the best source of crit is already in the swords, and swords are able to parry. So in my opinion, if you want to like do some kind of a build who likes to crit somebody from an ambush, you're better off going for the onslaught mastery rather than the prowl mastery, right? Because with onslaught mastery, you at least need to have 15 weapon skill, so you'll at least have like some kind of a hit chance that you're actually able to hit your target. I guess if you want to make that sort of a build, you would be also investing into ambuscade, but then we're like coming back to that sort of an issue that I had with ambuscade. If you're doing some kind of an ambush build, you end up investing more and more and more and more skill points into it to make it work. And you might not even be able to make it work because your opponent might not find your ambush character, or because they break your ambush, you know, and then you just wasted so many points on trying to make something work. So I think this skill just ends up being kind of bad, because Onslaught does it better, in my opinion. Quick Draw. So Quick Draw is actually a pretty good skill. It's pretty good skill. I think it's kind of also a fair skill, because it costs like 6 agility and 12 agility. For the power that it gives you, it's pretty damn good. So I kind of like going on for the quick draw on like all-in characters. Like you could, for example, I can see using quick draw on somebody like a ghoul, you know? So for example, imagine your ghoul has like a big hammer or a big two-handed axe, right? So he is currently at -10 initiative. And like the entire purpose of this goal is just to come up to somebody and whack him, twice. Then you can adrenaline rush after that, and then you can quick draw. So without the quick draw, this character could have the issue that because the ghoul has to like walk up to somebody, um, you sometimes just don't have the luxury of using 2 SP to be able to swap to the spear, for example. So this skill just kind of helps you get that 2 SP and to be able to 2-turn somebody. And 2-turning somebody with henchmen at 30 initiative difference is pretty good, right? Because you're swapping from a 200 hammer or 200 axe to a spear, which is gonna, and spear and empty hand is plus 20. So I think the skill is good. It's pretty good. As for the mastery is that now you just use 1 SP. Now you just use 1 SP instead of, what do you call it? Instead of offense points for swapping. I think the skill kind of just ends up being not bad, and let me explain why. So you can create some kind of like funky build. I kind of theorized this build as like for Skaven poisoners with weeping blades. So what you would do is that normally you attack with weeping blades 3 times. So that's 2 OP, that's 3 OP, and that's 4 OP. So that's 9 OP in total, right? And then because like poison is like a time-based thing, like the more time passes, the more damage you're gonna deal with poison. You just swap to like a different weapon. You actually like quick swap to a shield plus one-handed melee weapon, and this shield and like the spear would be, for example, or like a mace or other one-handed weapon, it would be plus crit resistance, and the shield would be also like defensive, of course, right? So I think this is kind of like usable for that sort of a thing. Yeah. You could also like use this on impressives, to be honest. I can see the skill being used on impressives as well. Like for some builds. Because with impressive, every single offensive point is important for them. So being able to mitigate like any offensive points loss can be a huge deal. So yeah, I think it just kind of just ends up being not bad. So quick leap, it doesn't cost anything. I think it's kind of like usable. Like I can see maybe somebody using it, but the issue is that there's just overall in the game there is not that many leaping opportunities or like leaping maps. So it's like very questionable. And when you actually get to the part where you want to leap from one point to another, you usually want to pass that test 100% because you don't want to fall. And this gives you minus 15% chance to pass the test. So like even when you have the skill, you still may go for the normal for the normal leap because you don't want to fail. Um, yeah, I think it's just kind of bad, to be honest. And the mastery is just horrendous because you invested into a you invested a point into something which is completely irrelevant. So yeah, yeah. Even if you like wanted to like increase something like a leap chance, I think you're just better off with athletic expert, right? I think you're better off with this or this, but probably this to mitigate this. But yeah. Okay. Sidestep. Oh, so yeah, back to the dodge characters. They also have one additional issue, and that is that they need 100% terror resistance, because otherwise their skills just do not work against terror characters. Yeah. It's kind of tragic when you think about it. I mean, sidestep can be like very clutch. For example, for impressives. There you don't have to like worry about like something like a terror resistance or something like that. You don't have to worry about it, for example, with ghouls either. Definitely for mercs though. And this thing is like it is able to counter every single well, not every single, because Daredevil also exists. Daredevil builds should be able to actually beat your dodge almost every single time. I'm gonna put this like into insane. I think this skill is actually kind of insane if you manage to make it work. Or is it really good? I think I'm just gonna like put it at insane. Just because you have like that ability to win against every single melee attack. And it's like in PvE, it's a great stalling tool. As for the mastery, mastery costs like a total of, what do you call it, 6 offensive points? Sorry, offensive points. 6 skill points. I think it's also like really good. This skill can be often like a game changer. It like that one more miss against that character is often like the difference between your character going down and not going down. So I think it kind of just ends up being like really good skill. I think. Yeah. I think also like dodgy impressives can like the skill. For example, like the Chaos Spawn, or somebody like the Executioner can also like the skill. The Maiden of Sigmar could like it, but it's like I don't think it's quite there. All right. Okay. So Swift Jump, similarly to Quick Leap, doesn't cost anything, so you can just add it. And you are probably, it's also like an active skill. So, like active skills in Mordheim are less competitive than passive skills in Mordheim. So you usually end up with less active, with less, you usually end up with more free active skill slots. And this skill is usually also like very easy to like put into your build. You usually also get the skill with whenever you hire like a new hired sword, because the cost of it is like 3 agility and 9 agility. And in my opinion, I think this skill is like a little bit too good. Also, you have to like understand that you get like minus 45% chance to pass like the skill check. But the thing is that you don't care about like failing or passing the swift jump, because it does the same thing. Like either way, you're gonna go down and you're gonna be fine about it. I mean, the skill is like kind of busted. I don't feel like every single character should be able to have this skill. You kind of want this skill on every single character, even like impressives. You can see how like powerful the skill is whenever you come down to like any jump down point, because you're immediately like, damn, I wish I had like swift jump, when you don't have it. And like some henchmen end up with not having like swift jump, and that's kind of sad. But yeah, like swift jump is just, I think, a bit too good in the game right now because it's free. I think this skill shouldn't be at like the 3 to 9 agility, and I don't think every single character should have access to this skill. I think only like the more agile characters should have access to the skill. And I think it would be like better off at like either 6 agility requirement or like 9 agility requirement to make like agility more attractive, because you don't have to like invest into agility whatsoever in order to get the skill. As for the swift jump mastery, it's not completely horrendous. It just kind of ends up being bad. Because the only character that could possibly go for this is a Night Runner, because Night Runner is the only character in the game that cares about passing this skill check in order to get +4 movement speed. So I feel like this sort of a skill should be also easy to master. Not easy to master, but trivial to master. Because the skill already has the requirement that you need at least 9 agility to get it. So I think this sort of skill should be trivial to master. And this skill as well should be like trivial to master. Yeah. Because there's no reason to get it otherwise. Maybe even like athletic expert should be like trivial to master, because there's already like the requirement of like at least 9 agility in order to get it. Let's talk about Wall Runner a little bit. So for Wall Runner, you get 6 agility. You need 6 agility, and you're able to climb as many times as you want at a reduced chance. So it's like minus 30%. And climbing up can kill you, but so you can be also killed by enemies because you didn't manage to climb up. Like there's a lot of situations in Mordheim. There's a lot of situations in Mordheim where you really need to pass the climb check. And what this skill does is it basically allows you to trade some health for the ability to be able to pass the climb check 100%. So that's very, very good. Also, if you like, for example, don't want to deal with this downside, you can also like use a rune of climbing, and rune of climbing can kind of like mitigate the damage taken from this rune. I think like Rune of Climbing might even end up giving you more health overall because you didn't fail your climb test so much. It can give you more health than the head enchantment, which gives you just straight up like 30 wounds. And this skill is you also kind of want to use this sort of a skill on somebody like artillery casters and also like ranged units because they are very like SP heavy units, and like for them like failing the climb is gonna cost them like more SP than they can afford to lose. So this skill just kind of like ends up being really good, in my opinion. And the mastery version, I'm not sure. Like, like for the mastery version, you need to have at least 12 agility. So you should already have like some kind of like a decent chance to pass the climbing skill. But like if you don't want to lose any health whatsoever, yeah, if you don't want to lose like that health from trying to climb up, and you have like a free point that you don't know where to put, I think it just kind of ends up being like okay. Like I understand why you would pick it. It's not like completely bad. Like as an example, I was like using this skill on a marksman, which did not really invest all that much into like their agility, and they ended up like losing something like 100 health trying to climb up. But like it's better than like losing all your health because you didn't manage to climb up. So yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of okay. Overall, like the agility skills, they're alright. But I think like Swift Jump is too overpowered because you kind of want to pick it up on literally every single unit in the game. And, you know, it's tragic trying to create like a dodge unit early on. So I would also like to see where is it? Avoid, where are you? I would like to see Avoid like being 100, 300 skill. So that it's like similar to Flashberry.